They're on whites, they're on fucking it.
Team's on white armor. Okay, they're probably gonna die.
Find the village. Oh, that guy is like less overdrive. Still the same.
Okay. Something I want to actually with here, right? You do Horizon entry. You do the Horizon thing where you cube in the air and throw your ult at them, right? I want you to so when it comes to understanding like team fights, right? Obviously a lot of like how do I explain? When you're 3v3ing another team, right? The biggest thing I want you to understand is I think this is both sides of this coin are true for you. If you need to use something, or if you don't need to use something, don't use it, right? Someone calms that they are double white here, and I believe you found out that one we're white.
Yep.
Someone comes. Someone comes.
They're on whites.
Yeah, they're on whites. Yeah, yeah. Someone comes here that they're on white armor. You guys are triple purple, right? Your necessity to kill this team, like obviously you should try and kill them here. You should try and push them, be aggressive for this here. You probably don't need to exercise a lot of resources to kill this team, because they're on white armor. You can make assumptions about their ammo, their loot, their nades, their abilities, blah blah blah, stuff like that, right? If you don't need to use abilities, don't use them, right? If it's typically better to be a little bit more cautious with your abilities than to just go in and like completely use them. But on the flip side, if you need to use something, you should use it. You should never die with like grenades in your box, unless you died like getting ratted or something that's not really like a fight, right? Something you can't really control super well. But if you're in a fight, like you have full leverage over the fight, you shouldn't die with abilities. You shouldn't die with grenades. You shouldn't die with things that you could have leveraged in that fight, right? Again, like I said, there are some exceptions here, right? But especially when you're playing in a situation like this, right? I doubt you guys are gonna get thirded because it's zone 2 closing. But you guys are relatively in the middle of the map, but there's not a lot of teams alive. It's 7-18. I'm gonna take a wild guess that probably one of those teams is a fucking lifeline team that's just sitting in zone here, right? You using a grenade and a horizon ult here. You legitimately probably could have just walked up because your bang is here. You probably could have just walked up, climbed on the roof, and then shot that guy with your bang. I mean, your bang just won't kill him, I think. Right? You didn't need to use this ult at all. You didn't need to use this. In fact, if a better team walks up, like a half-decent team walks up, you don't have your ult anymore. You don't have that grenade anymore, right? You can't armor swap. You can't armor swap off this guy because he has a fucking. Well, he has a blade.
Oh my god, the loot delivery. It's here.
Holy shit.
These guys had loot but whites. That's actually crazy.
I think they might have been
Holy
fresh
shit on.
Yeah. Okay, you can cracks one, slides forward.
He's one.
Have queued away. They pop horizon.
They don't know. Come on here.
Yeah. So why do you die here?
I didn't clear the right angles with the smoke up. So
here, right? You are right, 100%. What you need to do here, especially when you're pushing open positions like this, this is a good position for your Bangalore. This is not a good position for you, and I'm sure I'm sure you can understand why that is, right? Your Bangalore has smoke. She has double time. She can go. She's in control of the angles that she can play. You're kind of just following her and following the angles that she plays, right? You're kind of just following behind her, but you're not playing the smoke the same way she's playing the smoke. You're just gonna get shot from here, right? When you're playing, especially when you're playing characters like Horizon, where you can just take height for free, right? Like, that's your thing. You should just take height for free. I'm sure you know why high ground is good. There's like 8 reasons, right? If you literally just played up here and got a cross angle over here just to shoot them, you probably would have been a lot better off. Especially if you play, you can play over here and do the exact same thing, right? You don't really want to try and play a more frontward angle like this, especially as Horizon. Like, Horizon has a get out of jail free card, right? Like her Q, but she's not. It's not entirely. It's like get half out of jail, get 3/4 out of jail, right? It's not an entirely free mobility where like Wraith or Bang might have, right, with the smoke. Had good positioning. There's one here. There's one here, and there's one here. Good.
It was actually a duo.
So it was a duo.
Yeah, we found out at the end that it was a duo.
Well, I thought there was a guy here. This team has hypothetically good positioning for a trio, right? Good positioning in this game in a team-based setting looks like a triangle. It looks like this, or it looks like this. Do you know the roles of a team in this
Anchor,
game?
fragger, support.
Kind of. You're not wrong. You're not right though. This role, anchor. Anchor is not a term for somebody in a fight. Anchor is a role for holding a position. They hold, like, for example, if you have zone and there's a team Valk holding next to you, or they're hopping like an evac balloon, this person will sit in the building. This person will sit in a relative decent spot to control space while these two people play together and try and extend to go fight, right? This role is better referred to as initiator. It looks like anchoring in a fight. I clicked that like 3 times. This role is better described as initiator. This is what I like to play in comp because it's not necessarily like an anchor. Because if you're playing anchor and you're holding a position, you're kind of leaving your team to 2v3 instead. You have to be an initiator, so you are either full in or full out. Anchor just implies that they're holding like a position. Okay. Fragger, yeah, entry frag. I'm just gonna write frag, and then support. Support is also again kind of true. This is usually support or refrag. It's one of these two things. Do you know what refrag is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're finishing off on a fight that the fragger initiates.
Exactly, right. Like Maggie's a good example of a character everyone thinks is entry, but is not. She's a refrag, right? You can't really ball a team for entry. You can, but it's not really great. If you ball somebody who's half HP though, they're fucking dead, right? Somebody goes to the door, you just drill the door, easy. But if you drill a door and somebody who's full HP, it's like whatever. These roles are really important to understand that the dialectic like triangle position is gonna appear like no matter what fight you're taking, right? Here, your positioning ends up looking more like a chain here, right? You're kind of just walking in like a conga line, like next to each other, right? When you're playing, especially because I mean, who do you like to play? I mean, Bang Horizon off these 2 videos.
I'm more of a I play Bang, Cat, and Fuse.
Okay. You Bang can play all 3 positions, right? Bang is really good because she's really flexible. You can play Bang as entry, you can play Bang as initiator, you can play Bang as refrag or like support, whatever, right? You can play her a shit ton of ways. Catalyst is typically either entry or is initiator. Mostly initiator. I would say like 80% initiator, 20% entry. It depends on the situations and the maps and the buildings and stuff like that. Like against another catalyst, a catalyst is entry. Because she can just run through the spikes and shit and just like go crazy. She can also use her wall and play like fucking Akali, and like just go in and out of that shit with a shotgun or even SMG and like literally just peeking it out. It's always important to try and be conscious of in these open areas when you're trying to play space and fights for space and stuff like that. It's really important that you try and keep like a more triangle formation, okay? But when it comes to these more dynamic fights in the open and stuff like that, if you don't play proper positioning, you don't play like off angles to choke out teams and stuff like that, you know, play to support your teammate, or your teammate plays to support you, you will start suffering, okay?
Okay.
What the fuck?
Wait, what?
That glitch? There's no way. No.
Yeah, like this works.
No.
They in their back doors. Oh no. Oh no.
Oh, okay.
What's cracked?
That peak, even if there wasn't a horizontal there, is very dangerous. This angle here, when you peek this angle,
They in their back doors.
obviously the horizontal, obviously you're on horizontal, it's kind of fucking you here, right? Peeking this is really dangerous. Do you know what thresholds are? You probably,
threshold?
yeah, you probably know what they are, you probably just don't know the name for them. A threshold is basically just an area that divides another area. For example, a door is the best example. A door is a threshold. It can also be like an empty door, like that is a threshold. Something like a head glitch could be a threshold as well, because that divides this area between this area, right? Like there's a line here, divides these 2 areas together. Basically, it's basically the best way to think about it is a divider where 2 teams could play in like end zone, right? If they want to coexist, they could coexist here. Maybe not very well, but they could coexist, right? So for example, Shroom building was really good, like the broken down like World's Edge building, right? It was because it had a zipline here, and there was a floor, and each floor had the threshold here with the zipline thing, right? And you could easily go in and out and pass through this threshold, and there was like a door over here that's also a threshold. There's the staircase here, which has a door here, which is the threshold, right? There's all these different rooms here that separate things, right? And that's really good for moving players because they can pass through all these thresholds really quickly, hold strong positions on the thresholds and shit like that, right? It's really important to think about that when you're holding a position. You typically always want to hold a threshold because of the idea that it inherently gives you cover, and you can use a threshold to manipulate how opponents can approach you from it, right? So for example, if we just draw let's draw like a wall here, right? If you are holding a threshold right here, let's just say you're standing in front of it like you were, right? An opponent can come from anywhere here, right? They have anywhere that they can approach from in this angle. This is like 96 different ways someone can approach you, but realistically talking, about 3. However, if you are playing a threshold like this, you're playing a threshold like right here. Realistically, there's only one way an opponent can approach you, and that's in front of you, right? You inherently limit where opponents can push you from, and therefore minimize how much actual quote-unquote aiming you have to do, right? You have to focus on less, your mouse has to move less, and you inherently control different or very similar space, okay? When you peek this threshold here, okay, when someone is playing a threshold, right, a threshold typically dictate area that is controlled. So, for example, a team can be out here, and that's their space. A team can be right here, and that's their space, right? Typically, in a lot of situations, it'll look something more like this, where it's like contested space, and then there'll be another threshold into their own controlled space, right? This is typically how sieging works. But in situations where there's like a gap between you, for example, that last VOD where you died in the open, you were in contested space, right? They didn't own the space, you didn't own the space, you both were kind of shooting in the space, right? Neither of you guys really kind of controlled it. It's not solidly yours. Something that is solidly yours means a place where you can reset, you can heal to like minimal like danger, right? Like you might get shot on your back, but it's very unlikely, something like that, right? So not all thresholds are born equal. I don't need to tell you that some cover in this game is better than others. Head glitches are really fucking strong. Sometimes, like for geometry and when we're talking macro, things like small like boxes could be thresholds as well. In like terms of like where a team can play, right? A box is not really super great to play because you can get naded out, right? But a building is a really strong like macro threshold, right? The full team can play in a building and chill. And they can't really get naded out unless a team walks up to the building and starts approaching it, right? But if you're playing a box, a team far away can throw nades on you and abilities on you, right? When you're playing a threshold, it's important to understand that when an opponent wants to push you on a threshold, if you force, so let's say you are here, right? The angles you expose yourself to are anywhere from like here, right? Because anyone in this periphery could see you right here, right? But if you limit yourself to right here, the only people that could see you are basically people in your view cone, right? You limit your face where you get peeked just to here and like obviously behind you and stuff like that, right? But assuming we know where every opponent is, like in this situation where you do, you know every opponent's in the building, you know that you can only get peeked from this angle, right? When someone's playing a threshold, if you want to make sure that if they want to cross you, or if they want to fight you, especially if you're low HP, if they walk into your threshold, they walk into a threshold into your controlled space, they should die, right? The best way to ensure this is if you are playing a wall like right here, right? Let's say you can hug deep back on a wall right here. If someone wants to shoot you, they might be able to get an angle like right here, and that's kind of like these angles exist. They're really hard to get sometimes because this is like a 1-to-1 angle, right? This guy can see you as much as you can see him. You guys are probably gonna trade equal damage as long as you're paying attention, right? But if someone wants to actually deal damage to you, they have to fully cross through the threshold to shoot you, right? And if they're fully crossing themselves in the threshold, they expose themselves in a full 360 radius around them, right? Everybody can shoot them. Some person here can shoot them, person here can shoot them, person here can shoot them, etc., right? When you're peeking this threshold, you are exposing yourself to all of this space, right? You're exposing yourself to maybe somebody over here, maybe somebody. I don't even know where the people in this room are. I dead ass don't know. I can't see, right? And neither can you. You can be getting peeked from 3 different angles here, right? And you don't know, right? When you're peeking this angle, you should probably wait for your horizontal to go away first off. But even if your horizontal was gone, let's just say it was gone, peeking this angle like this is a surefire way to get absolutely like beamed. Sure, a bad team isn't gonna punish you for this, but a good team who's actually paying attention to angles and doors and shit like that is actually gonna be able to punish you here for the peek. Okay, you should be taking this peek further back, because if you're taking it further back, you inherently have more control over over the spacing and the angle. Right, really close range is deadly. And I mean, you know this. You're on controller. You know how deadly close range is, especially when we're talking about the roof example earlier, where you're controlling height here, right? Like where I see the off angle from height, and you expose yourself to like a far angle over here and a far angle over here, right? If they're 30-30ing you or G7ing you, you're gonna be aware of that, like by like the first shot. But if someone's gonna one clip you, you don't really know until you're hit for 120, right?
Yep.
And that's just kind of a difference in the time to kill for weapons. Okay. Make sense?
Yeah. For the I was trying to actually play it in the horizon ult to get some like entry damage because you can't see or hear very well.
Yeah, you can't do that here.
Obstructing.
Yeah,
Okay.
you just can't really do that here because you're exposing yourself to too many angles. If you're gonna play in a horizontal, it has to be in a less, like you have to peek less here. Straight up.
Okay.
The intention was good, just not the situation to do so. Okay.
Okay. Should I do? Yeah. So I should understand your angle like off of the horizon ult.
Yeah, you should.
Okay.
You probably can't see if you go further, but it's a better play than just walking up and taking a shit ton of damage like you do here, right? Like you fully cross the threshold, and look how much damage you take instantly, right? Like that door right there is threshold. You walk inside. Obviously, you shoot them. But like you almost fucking die if you didn't have gold there. If you didn't get lucky by loot, or like, well, I wouldn't say lucky because you fought a team, but like if you didn't have loot there, like if you're on a blue armor there, you fucking die. Like it's over, right? If they hit one more bullet, you like you're just dead there. This team isn't like great, but they managed to punish you for for your mistake here, right? Your strafe was good. If your strafe was any worse, you would have died. In this situation, I would recommend taking the other window angle, waiting for Horizon ult to break, and taking a further peek back. Okay. Things like that. I don't think you have any nades. I don't think you had the opportunity to pick up nades.
I grabbed a thermite on the roof though after like I never did before.
Okay.
Wait.
Nade in their back doors. No.
Oh, okay.
Like, if you get the other window angle here, your teammates on that window, you can probably pinch them. Especially because they catwalled it off.
Yo, I killed one.
But this peak is really good here. This bubble cuts off the threshold and makes new one here. You just hard swing this guy when he's reloading. He can't do anything to you. That's really good. That's a perfect example of good timing.
One more. One more crack. Just get in his. Yo, you are great at the game. Yo.
My best thing I can talk about for knockdowns, by the way. You want to more hard strafe in a single direction. Because if you're playing against, if the person holding the knockdown is on controller and you just hard strafe to the right, their controller probably can't keep up with your speed. They can, but it's unlikely. Especially if you're really close. The closer you are, the faster you are. Well, relative, right? It's relative speed.
Yeah.
And you're close to them, just strafing in a circle. The people on the knockdowns can't keep up, and you're gonna get a back angle on this guy. You actually do get a back angle on this guy, and then you strafe back into the knockdown shield. Right, like here, you you get to shoot like both the knockdown people here. If he was still playing in the knockdown, you would have been able to shoot him instead here, right? And then you strafe back you strafe back into the knockdown shield, and then you're just kind of walking through them. And then once you actually hit a long strafe to the left here, they can't keep up. But yeah, if you long strafe against controllers, they can't keep up. If you long strafe against MK, they run on a mouse pad. They can't play a knockdown very well.
Thank you,
right.
Rez.
You also
Yo, you are great. Yo, thank you, Rez.
Not down.
The important actually I want to talk about this as well. This is a chart I like to use to describe a top-down view of an opponent, right? So this is an opponent top-down view. This is their view cone. This is what they can see. This is their field of view. This black line is their movement axis. Okay. This is how they are moving. When you're fighting somebody, they always move on a left-right movement axis. If they're not moving on left-right movement axis, you kill them because you're in front of them, and they're walking in a straight line. You kill them. They're always moving on a left and right scale. If you can manage to escape an opponent's view cone, and they are not super aware of it, for example, for like the 0.2 seconds that you escape it, they will continue to move on this movement axis, and you will be at their side, so they'll be walking in a straight line. Most of our goals here when we're fighting somebody, good dodge and strafe and stuff like that. So dodge is part of strafing, but it's not necessarily all strafing. But when you're trying to dodge somebody, we're trying to escape this view cone inherently, right? When we do manage to escape this view cone, we get closer to the movement axis, which is really good. When you because if someone's moving left and right, and each time they're moving axis, they're going in a straight line. Make sense?
Yeah.
When you're team fighting somebody, for example, let's say this is your teammate. Your teammate's here. This guy's moving axis is focused to being on your teammate here. What position should you take? Should you go behind them if this guy's fighting this guy? Should you go behind him, or should you go to his side?
To his side.
Yeah. Do you know why? Other than the fact that you're on his moving axis, or do you know why being on his moving axis is so good to being compared to being behind him? Being
Because
behind
it
him is
doesn't
good.
help. It doesn't help with tracking the strafe if I'm just on the other side.
Yeah, exactly. More specifically, a better understanding of why, because a better understanding comes to because this is a very reductionist example. When we start adding more examples, understanding why it's good will help you a lot, right? So for reference, there's basically 8 directions of movement somebody can go. A controller has a full 360 range, but there's realistically only 8. Then we'll simplify it to 8. There's obviously up, down, left, right, and then the diagonals, right? That's the 8 directions. Okay. Someone can only move 8 directions, really. If this guy, if you're on this guy's moving axis and he moves left or right, well, you shoot him. You just kill him, right? He's walking a straight line. If he walks forward or back to you, right? Let's say he swaps his moving axis to focus on you. Well, then your teammate just one clips him, right? He's walking a straight line. If he walks diagonally this way at you, he's walking into both of you. You better kill that guy, right? If he walks diagonally this way, he's walking at your teammate. He's also not moving a lot for you, right? If he's moving diagonally this way, he's walking at you, and he's not walking very, and he's walking again diagonally for this person, which is relatively easier to hit. The only way this person could go realistically is diagonal left, right? Because in going diagonal left, he's going away from both of you. But even then, he's still relatively slower, and his strafe is its relative speed is its relative speed is slower, right? Compared to if you're behind them, right? This basically chokes his movement axis to one direction. And anything else, you get easier damage on, right? You punish him a lot more for it. If you're behind him instead, this guy can move on the left and right axes completely fine, right? He's because the relative strafe for you is 100% unaffected. This guy can struggle between the two of you, and you have to do full aim skill to actually hit this guy, right? It's better than being on a diagonal in this situation. However, diagonals or 45-degree angles are really strong against opponents that are pinched against a wall, right? So this circle that I'm drawing here, this circle is best described as a player's sphere. Player sphere just expresses how where an opponent can move to. So if we were to draw it minutely, we would draw like this. We'd go this, right? And if an opponent's movement sphere was cut off, let's say there's a wall here, right? Their player sphere would look like this, right? They can go up, down, forward, and then like this, right? But inherently, this cuts off 3 directions: diagonal back, and the diagonal down back. Okay, make sense?
Yeah.
When you're playing against an opponent, if let's just for the sake of this example, draw an infinite wall. Okay, this wall it stretches infinitely this way and this way. And let's say your opponent is backed up against this wall here, right? Their movement options are up, down, not that way, forward, and then diagonals, right? They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 options they can go, right? And you can position yourself anywhere in front of them. We'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 and 5 are the same, and 2 and 4 are the same. So realistically, it's just 1, 2, or 3. Which position do you take? Which position is the strongest out of those 3 for you to take against this guy? 1? Why 1?
Because it limits the amount of the amount of movement relative to me that if you can take.
This guy can just strafe like this though. I mean, sure he can go in one direction, but a good movement. But as soon as he moves off of this wall, his player sphere is once again fully realized. He still has a full
Okay.
he still has a full movement sphere. The best option for this would be 2. The reason why 2 is because if he does move in one of these other directions, right? Let's look at his options. He walks. Let's say he walks this way. Well, he's walking at you, right? You kill him. He's walking at you, right? Let's say he walks diagonally. Again, he's walking at you. Let's say he walks this way. You can literally mirror him or anti-mirror him, either one. You can just follow him. He's walking at you. He's walking at you for 3 out of the 5 different ways he can go. This way, he's moving slower, so his strafe is easier to track, and then backwards, he's walking in a straight line. This is commonly referred to as a 45-degree angle. As a controller player, you want to establish these on basically everybody. You will out-trade everybody on a 45-degree angle if your mechanics are good, and your mechanics are good. It's really important that if you can ever pinch somebody's movement sphere to be in only 6 directions, up, forward, back, or left, right, and forward, you can get a 45 on them, establish the 45, and then just kill them, right? By establishing a diagonal like this, okay? And the same thing's true for the inverse here. If you're here, obviously same thing. It works the same way, okay? 1 and 3, most players will engage on 3 and try and just try and like 80 at this guy and like aim at him and try and kill him. That's like the worst thing you could do. That's giving this guy 100% movement power, okay? Really good dodgers will be able, like, no matter how good of a dodger you are, if you have insane dodge, you can't really escape a situation like this. You need to avoid ever getting in this situation where your back's against the wall, okay? What they have to do, so for example, let's draw a hypothetical situation. Let's draw a threshold example that I described earlier. Let's just draw like a building here, right? So it doesn't really matter the dimensions, just as long as we know that there's a building here, right? Let's say that you're playing against an opponent who's playing against the wall here. They're playing against the wall to deny you the ability to shoot them from the threshold, right? But you, as a player, for one reason or another, need to swing them, okay? You swing in the building like this. What does this player do? What is this person's best course of action? Any idea?
Does it which angle am I coming from? Am I just trying to turn to him? Or?
Yeah, you're just trying to get in this building to try and fight him. You're probably gonna end up here. There's many different ways an opponent can approach this. They could swing out here. They could swing out here. They could swing out in a straight line. However way, you don't really know, or well, I guess this guy doesn't really know. Actually, let's flip this. This is you. Let's say this is you. Let's say someone's trying to enter the building. How would you best counteract this? What would you do here?
I'll get away from the wall.
Yeah, exactly, right? How would you do that? Would you just walk away? What would you do?
I'd walk just down.
Down, so just walk like this way?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely not the worst option. This is something referred to as counter swinging. This is where a lot of really good players mess up on their understanding of cover, right? Because a lot of people will be like, cover good. Bad players will go, the 50-50 rule. I have to have 50% of my cover on my screen. I have to be 50% covered at all times. Like, no, not in the slightest. Because you're playing cover like that, and someone hard swings you, you're cutting off your player sphere in half. You inherently limit your options. A good player, like here, if this person swings you, they go here, and you're against the wall, you're pinched into a corner now. Like, you can only really strafe that way. You just go into a corner. If this person can actually hit their shots and can shoot you, they just beam you here, right? When you try to walk this way. When someone swings you right here, you need to make sure that you counter swing. If they slide jump in, you need to match them and slide jump out. I recommend slide jumping because it's the number one thing that'll catch them off guard. It's the number one thing that displaces you the most, okay? It's important to always try and realize your player sphere as much as possible so you can strafe against opponents in however way is most appropriate for the situation, okay?
Okay.
Does this make sense?
Yes.
You have any questions?
No.
Okay. Another really good example. Counter swinging is really good if you're ever caught up against a wall. You should always try and counter swing people when you're up against a wall. A really good example I like to show in Apex itself here is if I go in the firing range. Do you do 1v1s at all?
Yeah.
If you're next time you're one-v-1ing somebody and the situation comes up, you'll literally get to feel it in real time. Get down here. All right. So if someone's on high ground, I don't need to explain all the benefits that the high ground has. I'm sure you understand. When someone's on high ground like this, the best way to counter this high ground is to go underneath them like this, right? Because if you go directly under them, this counteracts most of the benefits of high ground. Sure, they still have an easier time shooting you. They can still hit your head, right? But your relative strafe is the fastest it can ever be to somebody that's above you, right? You're the hardest to hit. You're the hardest to read. They can still hit your head, but it's kind of the best situation we can make out of it, right? But a slightly better thing to do here is when you get up to this wall here, and they come to look at you, like you know that they're gonna come to look at you, is if you slide out here like this, as soon as they reach the edge here, this player, if you think about it, has now exposed their entire body over the ledge here trying to shoot you, right? Even if you slide out a little bit, so like let's say that's a really tall high ground and they're looking down on you. Even if you go out a little bit here, this player has still exposed their entire body to you. They have given up the benefit of cover from high ground, which makes them pretty difficult to hit. You can, if and you remove the, because if you're down here, you're probably gonna shoot their legs a good bit because you know that's kind of what you can see. But if you go back, you're gonna start shooting their their body once again. It's gonna be a lot easier to actually shoot their center of mass. This is kind of the same knowledge and the same understanding because once you go out here and they don't have cover anymore, you have a lot more range in which you can actually move around and strafe in, right? Make sense?
Yeah.
Someone ever swings you like this, if they were dropping you like this, you need to probably counter swing or like swing to cover or something like that, right? Like obviously, like swinging to cover here would be a good thing to do. But if there was no cover at all, you just counter swing this guy out here and go out here like this, okay?
Okay.
Any questions at all?
No.